Welcome to the press briefing. Now I hand over to the chairman. Yes, friends of the media, the briefing today is to report to you the work of the House Committee in the current session. I will first of all invite Deputy Chair Mr. Ma Fung Kwok to report to you work on the consideration of bills, subsidiary legislation, and the policy issues. Mr. Ma, please.
During the fifth term of the LegCo, the House Committee HC held a total of 128 regular meetings and 11 special meetings with the Chief Secretary for Administration. The HC will also hold another special meeting on the 11th of July to meet with the CS4A and other relevant officials to discuss the lead-in-water incident. With regard to bills, during this term, the government introduced a total of 89 government bills, 83 of which were passed by the Council. Meanwhile, the Medical Registration Amendment Ordinance Bill 2016, the Private Columbarium Bill, and the Fire Services Amendment Bill 2015 will be dealt with at the Council meeting on the 13th of July. The HC also considered 3 bills introduced by members, namely Professional Accountants Amendment Bill 2013, Kowloon Tong Church of the Chinese Christian and Missionary Alliance Incorporation Amendment Bill 2014, and the Bank of Communications Hong Kong Limited Merger Bill. Now, 2 of them were passed by the Council. For the remaining one, Bank of Communications Hong Kong Limited Merger Bill, introduced by Mr. Ng Lang Sing, the HC also supported that its second reading debate be resumed at the Council meeting on the 13th of July. Now, during this term of the Council, the HC established a total of 77 bills committees to scrutinize 75 bills introduced by the government and 2 bills introduced by members. Bills introduced by the government include Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2012, Electronic Health Record Sharing System Bill, Promotion of Recycling and Proper Disposal Product Container Amendment Bill 2015, Property Management Services Bill, Private Columbarium Bill, and Eastern Harbour Crossing Legislation Amendment Bill 2015. With regard to subsidiary legislation, during this LegCo term, members scrutinized a total of 556 pieces of subsidiary legislation, 3 pieces of technical memorandum, and 57 proposed resolutions submitted by the government. HC set up a total of 118 subcommittees to study in detail the relevant legislative proposals, including legislative amendment proposals on the setting up of a new Innovation Technology Bureau, subsidiary legislation on proposed procedures to be adopted by the Competition Tribunal, subsidiary legislation on raising the level of statutory minimum wage, subsidiary legislation on updating the standards of sanitary fitments in private buildings and increasing the number of female sanitary fitments in public places, and subsidiary legislation on implementing the Maritime Labour Convention 2006. Moreover, the HC also considered 53 pieces of subsidiary legislation which are not required to be tabled before the Council, 40 of which are subsidiary legislation drawn up under the United Nations Sanctions Ordinance and do not have to be tabled before the Council. They are referred to the HC's subcommittee to examine the implementation in Hong Kong of resolutions of the United Nations Security Council in relation to sanctions for its consideration. Concerning subcommittee on policy issues in other Council business, during the 5th term of the Council, the HC also set up 8 subcommittees on policy issues and other Council business, including the Subcommittee on Poverty Alleviation Subcommittee to follow up on issues relating to the 3-runway system at the Hong Kong International Airport, Subcommittee to study issues relating to mainland Hong Kong SAR families, Subcommittee on proposed senior judicial appointments, and Subcommittee on proposals on the method for selecting the Chief Executive in 2017. For details of the above figures, friends of the media may refer to the pamphlet issued by the Secretariat. So much for my briefing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ma Fung Kwok. This session is the last one in this term of the Legislative Council. Many are very much concerned as to whether the Council could complete the scrutiny of all bills before prorogation on the 16th of July. In particular, those bills which are controversial or related to people's livelihood. At the start of this session, I have repeatedly asked the administration to introduce bills as early as possible. In this respect, the government has made some improvement in the way they introduce bills. In this session, the administration introduced a total of 18 bills, 12 of which were introduced in the first half of the session, and 9 of those were actually introduced before the end of December last year. This council dealt with a number of controversial legislative proposals in this session. We spent 96 hours on the Copyright Amendment Bill 2014 in relation to its resumption of second reading debate and committee stage. At the end, a motion to adjourn was passed at the council at the committee stage, so that's the end of the work on the amendment bill. On the private columbarium bill, the Bills Committee held a total of 35 meetings, and it has spent close to 73 hours to scrutinize the bill in detail. In response to the views of the Bills Committee, the administration has proposed over 530 amendments. As to whether the Council will be able to complete the scrutiny of this bill before midnight on the 15th of July, it remains unknown. I believe that this Council must try its best to complete all items of legislative effect on the agenda, whether or not members support them. From the report of the Deputy Chairman just now, you could see that members have put in great effort in considering bills and subsidy legislation. On policy issues, this is the last session of this term of the Legislative Council. So the House Committee and subcommittees on policy issues under relevant panels have started work right from the start of the session so that they could complete their work and submit report before the end of the session. The subcommittee on poverty, subcommittee to follow up issues relating to the free runway system at the Hong Kong International Airport, and the subcommittee to study issues relating to mainland and Hong Kong SAR families under the House Committee have put forward many suggestions in their reports. I hope the government will give them due consideration. To help members better understand policies and discuss them with the government, in this session, the panel on food safety and environmental hygiene received the support of the House Committee to pay a study visit to San Francisco from the 9th to the 13th of March this year, so they could learn about the experience of the regulation of food truck operation and also the United States regulation on imported food. The panel of development also conducted a study visit to Singapore from the 20th to the 23rd of March to learn from the experience in developing water resources and ensuring the quality of drinking water. As for visits to the mainland, I understand individual panels would like the opportunity to visit the mainland. The development between the Hong Kong SAR, the development of the Hong Kong SAR and that of the mainland is closely linked. I believe if both sides have the goodwill, members of the next term of the Legislative Council will have a higher chance of paying visits to the mainland and strengthen communication with the mainland government. Under the current constitutional framework, the relations between the executive and the legislature should be one of complementing each other and also checking on each other. At the start of this session, I pointed out that the relations between the executive and the legislature should not be one of confrontation. I have stressed time and again that the legislature should be a partner with the executive. The Deputy Chair and I meet with the Chief Secretary for Administration every week, and we've had good communication all along. The Chief Secretary of Administration has also been happy to attend special meetings of the House Committee to answer members' questions on major issues of public concern. The Chief Secretary has attended a record high number of special meetings of the House Committee in this term compared with the that for other terms attended by other chief secretaries. I'm glad that the relations between the legislature and the executive have seen improvement, especially at the working level. In scheduling the consideration of legislative proposals at the council meeting and agenda items on for the Finance Committee and Public Works Committee, both sides have agreed that we will first tackle issues related to people's livelihood and issues which are easier to deal with. And as long as we have goodwill and we are working for the good of the public, I believe there's room for further improvement between the relations between the executive and the legislature, and it will also help to improve the efficiency of the government. Finally, many members of this term have indicated that they would not be seeking re-election. As the chairman of House Committee, it is a great pity that I could not go by the convention to move a valedictory motion at the last council meeting next week, so members could express their feelings. So I would like to take this opportunity to wish members who are leaving either a happy retirement or great success in other capacities. I would also like to thank the Secretariat and the Legal Service Division and all their colleagues for the assistance they've rendered the House Committee in the past year. Thank you.
About the relationship between legislature and the executive. So how would you characterize that relationship right now and over the course of this term? And also, Mr. Ma, you're replacing Ronnie Tong, who took over the last deputy chairmanship. How do you think the relationship between pro-establishment and pan-democrats has been in this LegCo term?
Okay, let me put it that way. I think from the start of the term, because there were a few highly controversial bills and incidents, I think I've described, the relationship between the executive and the legislature quite low. But I think, as I just mentioned, this year, I think especially this year, after the executive arm decided to rearrange the agenda and making the bill that is pro-livelihood bill, the easier one that everybody would like to pass, to come first. So I think that resolved a lot of the conflict. Although I think we still have one or two bills that is highly controversial and is going through legislature right now. But I think it's vastly improved. This year is better than the last 3 years.
Well, I just want to clarify your question. You're asking me about the pan-democrat and the pro-establishment's relationship, right? Well, actually, during the last year, to me, it's a very good learning process. Being the deputy chairman of the House Committee, and I have to say thank you to Andrew and the Secretariat, as well as our legal advisor, who had been giving me a lot of support and advice to fulfill my role. And I do believe that in the legislature, difference of opinion is very normal as far as they can reflect the will of their constituency. But I think what is important is they need to work together to enhance the efficiency and in the debate. I mean, to be more realistic and also material. I mean, in the speeches, right? And but unfortunately, I can see that in some cases, our colleagues are not voicing out their opinion according to very basic factual information, and sometimes it's a little bit emotional, I should say, right? That's the only regret I have. But I do believe that in the long run, this can be improved, right? Because we all need to serve our community better and to achieve the common goal is to try to enhance the entire society's benefit. Okay.
想問翻呢，即係
Chairman, can I ask you, how would you characterize the relations between the executive and legislature? Would you say the relationships are, do you think you're on good terms? And do you think you will become the president of the council in the next term? Now a question for the deputy chair. In the past, the deputy chairmanship would be taken up by someone from the pan-democratic camp. Now this term, both the chairmanship and the deputy chairmanship have been taken up by the pro-establishment camp. Would you, do you think that helps your communication with the government? Well, when I gave a report on the work of this term, I used terms like tense relations or at an the relations being at an all-time low. But then and then it could get even lower. And then this session, the Chief Secretary of Administration has said that she would adjust the agenda items, so we will deal with people's livelihoods issues first and also the easy issues first. And you can see that there's been improvement in the relations between the two. And I think that's something we could consider again in future. Now, the government has to take on board the views of members, but at the same time, members, of course, need to play the function of check and balance on the government, but at the same time, we must work for the good of the public. So that means we must do something concrete that could improve people's livelihood, develop the economy, and so on. I think both parties need to all take a step forward and do more for the good of the people. I hope that in the coming term, the relations will improve substantially. Now, I'm a pragmatic person. We haven't yet come to the end of this term, and I haven't even come to a decision as to whether I will seek re-election. And if I do seek re-election and I'm re-elected, then I will only think about that in the next term. I've only been the deputy chairman for a year. For the 3 years before, there was a colleague. Well, Mr. Leung is a so-called pro-establishment camp, and Mr. Ronnie Tong was so-called the representative of the pan-democrats. If we talk about the communication between the House Committee and the government, I didn't see any problems. Communication has been good, and we've been diligently conveying members' views to the government, and the Chief Secretary also listened attentively to such views. So in terms of operation, there's not been a problem. Now, for different political parties in this council, whether they're from the pro-establishment camp or the pan-democratic camp, how they could help to improve the relations between the executive and the legislature. If there's consultation, of course, it will be good. Now, usually at the start of term, there will be consultation and coordination. And the consultation is not just about the chairmanship or the deputy chairmanship of a particular panel or House committee. It also involves the Finance Committee and even both committees. Or the way we would deal with business, there would be consultation, and I'm glad that such coordination and consultation still managed to play a role in this session. If I may add, the House Committee is mostly to deal with agenda items, their order. It's not really a place for politics as such. So if there could be good consultation and maybe there are both members from the pan-democratic camp and the pro-established camp as chairman or deputy chairman, that would be a good thing because it helped to enhance communication. Now, of course, legislature plays where politics is played out and people have different views. But when it comes to scheduling agenda items, it's really something routine, and it's good if both parties both sides are involved in that process. And it's really nothing political. Because if we could put together a proper agenda, then members will be facilitated and giving their views on different subjects. At the same time, we can ensure efficiency in the way the Council conducts its work, and that's for the good of everybody. I hope in the coming term, different parties could also come to some agreement and do something more concrete for the people of Hong Kong.
You just mentioned that this is last year, then that well, actually, finally, we are seeing some improvement in the relationship between the executive legislature. Is it because it's the last year, and do you think it's a real improvement? And after that, well, we come back in October, we will be seeing again tense relationships between the two parties. Of course, the two sides have to hold out the olive branch, and there are still some bills yet to be passed. Would you be asking the government to reshuffle the items again to deal with the more easier bills? For example, deal with bills other than the medical registration amendment bill first. Well, let me put it this way: there are in this legislative session, there are a few bills attracting divergent views. For example, we have the occupation movement and also the establishment of the ITB and also political reform and so on. So we use the term that we are having a very tense relationship. Well, I think that term is already quite mild. We still have to deal with some other bills apart from these extremely difficult ones, and the deputy chairman has mentioned some of them. In the past couple of months, you see that the bills have been passed in a more smooth way, and that's because we have reshuffled the items. Now we are left with 3 bills only, so there's really no much point of doing reshuffling again. We are tackling the easier first. We are not deliberately dealing with the medical registration bill first. So we adopt sort of a first come first served principle, so to speak. We are left with some 30 hours to deal with the 3 bills. Are we going to still drag our feet, or should we be doing a very quick job on these 3 bills? And after that, we still have Ms. Claudia Mo's motion with legislative effect, and also a private member's bill from Mr. Ng Lang Seng. These are also important items. I respect different views of the members. They are trying their very best to strive for whatever they want to achieve. But on top of that, I think we have to have regard for the overall interest of the Hong Kong community. The Legislative Council should exercise our collective wisdom and deal with all these. On the relationship between executive legislature, people, it's a matter of opinion on how the situation is like. But for the next time, I think the government must work hard to see how to improve the relationship. And the same goes for legislators as well. For the 2 bills recently, actually the bills committees have spent a lot of time working on them already. And they've put in a lot of hard efforts. So there weren't much controversies during at the discussions of the Bills Committee. And surprisingly, when they got to the full council sitting, well, the situation was different. And because of filibustering in the past, every week we have only 2 days to deal with the bills. Once, I had to attend 4 meetings in an afternoon. So that was very much the fallout of filibustering. maybe some members think that they have not been able to fully express their views at the Bills Committee, so that they are expressing their views again at the full council sitting. So for the next term, I think we should do a better job in working on the bills, and we can better protect the interest of Hong Kong. Now, the Pan-Democrats have some criticisms. They think you are rather high-handed, and you have a tense relationship with the Pan-Democrats. How do you see those kind of criticisms? As the chairman of the HC, can you communicate better with the Pan-Democrats? I accept criticisms. I tend to be very serious in dealing with matters, serious with the procedures. I want to be more effective. Without Mr. Ronnie Tong, I promised that for whatever important issues I would talk directly to Ms. Sit Ho. We would not be making decisions all our own. I might be sort of be quite rigid sometimes, but I am going by the rules of procedures. I will not go against the rules of procedures. And in fact, we've got a very good secretary, good secretariat, and the legal advisor to the HC. If I make any mistake, the first one to criticize me will be the HC secretary. Maybe I take a very serious attitude in dealing with matters. I'm very serious about procedures, so I would be strictly adhering to procedures. So whatever I do, comply with the procedures. Maybe I'm quite tough in a way, and some Pan-Democrats may not like it. Chairman, in the next term, there might be localist, radical people coming into the LegCo. Are you worried that there will be more storming acts? You said that you would like to coordinate better with the government. Now, every term comes with different composition and different dynamics, and people interact with each other. When Long Hair first joined, he was the radical within this council. He was dealing a blow to the established culture of the council. Now, Long Hair was considered a mild person. Now, for the next term, there may be new people joining the council. They may have different ways of dealing with things. And I think the LegCo as a whole must accommodate that. We do have a set of rules of procedure, so no matter how radical you are, you have to be complying with the rules of procedure. We will be defending that rules of procedures when come October, and see what kind of interaction we will have. Chairman, I would like to ask if the next CE would not be C.Y. Leung. In the sixth term of LegCo, do you think there will be an improvement in the LegCo executive relationship? I would not answer such hypothetical question. Now, looking at the past, Mr. Tung Chee-hwa and Mr. Donald Tsang, his relationship with LegCo may be different from C.Y. Leung's relationship with the legislature. We can make a comparison ourselves to see which relationship is better. Now, with Mr. Tung, are we having a better relationship between the executive and legislature? But then 500,000 people took to the street during his time. So the relationship between the two is very much interactive, and we see different compositions for different terms. I think both sides have to try to maintain cordial relationship with each other. Okay, thank you.